Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. I'm the Magi, and you know what time it is, and we're gonna get our midweek magic on. This week's midweek magic, we are turning back the clock on Wilds of Eldraine and going back to what most people do first, sealed events. And in fact, we're doing a Phantom Sealed here. Sealed, of course, has a lot to do with, well, kind of random luck with what you happen to open in your packs. But we'll talk about a plan to help you make the best of whatever you get. But before we get into all that, allow me to do the awkward thing and promote the channel. A while back, one of my viewers was kind enough to point out that we are the only channel putting out timely midweek magic content. So be sure to subscribe right here at the Planeswalker Stronghold for all of your future midweek magic needs, because we will be bringing you a deck list or strategy every single week. So what do you say we put all this aside and just get to that? Alright, so let's start this week's midweek magic off with a somewhat brief primer on sealed in general, because there are some differences between sealed and what I think probably most of you are more familiar with, draft. So whether you stand by Bread's bomb and removal based philosophy, or perhaps you've moved on to Keto's more efficient, evasive creature base, it's fair to say that limited tends to be about playing your very best cards. And more often than not, that means your bombs and your premium removal. I know most of the times when I'm building a sealed pool, the first thing I do is look at my rares and mythics to see what bombs I have and what's worth building around, and then see how that lines up with the removal pieces that I got in the pool. Secondly, you need to make sure you have a reasonable curve to the cards that you're playing. You need enough things in your 1, 2, and 3 drop slots that means you won't get run over in the early game, because if you don't do anything until turn 3, you're probably going to die on turn 4. On the other side of that coin, of course, you want to make sure you have enough things at your top end, your 4, 5, and 6, and beyond slots in some cases, that you have late threats that allow you to go over the top if the board state has stalled. The lack of card selection in a sealed pool typically means you want to avoid those more aggro-aggressive decks. It's very hard to open a random pool and get enough synergy there to make that work. Of course, if you do happen to open a very good aggressive pool, something like a red-white aggro, there's no reason to not play it. It's just not very likely. And of course, Magic is always going to be a game of turns, which is defined by drawing cards. So our old friend card advantage is always going to be relevant. More often than not, playing a card that grants you some form of card advantage is going to be a very good thing. In Sealed, it is statistically advantageous to take the draw. Yep. You heard me right. I know this goes kind of against the conventional wisdom of Magic that being on the play is good. But when it comes to Sealed, the concepts of the limited pool, card advantage, and the less likelihood of playing an aggro deck means taking the draw leads to more wins. Of course, again, if you happen to open and run that rare aggro pool, this might go the other way. And in Sealed, much like many other limited environments, it's a good idea to save your removal for when your opponent drops those bombs. Sure, you can use your 2-drop removal to take out their 1 or 2 drop, but you're really going to hate that decision when they drop that late game 6/6 evasive creature. And of course, it really makes sense to know as much about the limited environment as you possibly can. But of course, early in the season like this, that can be problematic. what I do highly recommend is take a few minutes and know the combat tricks that are going to be relevant for that particular limited environment, because there's nothing worse than getting blown out in the red zone. And now that we've covered the basics, let's move on to the specifics of this limited format. All right, so now let's talk about specifics of the Wilds of Eldraine limited format. And really the first thing you need to know is that blue is, well, fairly terrible. It's almost universally unplayable in limited. Really the only time I would consider it is if you had a couple of spell stutters to function as 2-drops, and you had an Into the Fate Court to round out your top end, and you had one or more really solid blue bombs. Other than that, I would leave this absolutely alone and focus on the other 6 color pairs. Blue is also very rarely worth splashing, unless of course you have one of those really bomb rares. On the other end of the Wilds of Eldraine limited perspective, red has very rapidly risen to be the premier color for this limited environment. It is definitely made the environment much more aggressive and faster than I think a lot of people, myself included, expected it to be. And this has pushed the red-white Boros deck really to premier status within the format. A lot of that has to do with the uncommon Imadane's Recruiter, but generally the Boros Go Wide Celebrate type deck led by Ash Party Crasher as the other Signpost uncommon does remarkably well. Red is a very deep color and has a lot of fantastic cards at the common and uncommon level. The other very fast red-based aggro deck is one that you'll be familiar with here on the channel. That is the Rakdos Rats deck. Its ability to go wide and be resilient and get value through sacrifice on its tokens is really quite remarkable and can very easily overwhelm opponents before they're able to get their base set up. Oftentimes the blue-green and red-green ramp decks just never have a chance to come online when they're faced against these fast aggro decks within the meta. One of my other original archetype recommendations for this format is positioned to do very well against these fast aggro style decks. That of course is the green-black food deck. Or in general, anything that is giving you access to an amount of food and the fact that food can be used to regain hit points. Any of these red-based fast strategies are going to hate anything that provides life gain. And of course, one of the most impactful bits of knowledge that you can take into any limited environment is understanding the combat tricks that are available to you and your opponents. Nothing will ruin your day like getting blown out in the red zone by an unexpected combat trick. So the best way to look these up on Arena is just access your decks page and then go into collection. From here, we want to edit down and of course select whatever set you're interested in. And depending upon where you are in your collection process, it might be a good idea to turn on the not collected as well. And from there, we want to say your common and uncommon. There's going to be rares and mythic combat tricks, but you're just not going to see them often enough to really worry about them, at least at first. From there, you want to select instant. And once you pull up your list from there, you want to use the phrase until end of turn. And that is going to give you all of your real combat tricks. And as you can see, Wilds of Eldraine has a lot. It's not unusual for colors to have 4 or 5 combat tricks. And even ones like blue have a couple of things at their advantage there. And you'll notice that some of these are creatures that come with a combat trick adventure. If you are a leader drafting this set, give high consideration to those cards. You also sometimes want to go in and select creatures here instead of instants, and use the phrase flash. But this set has very little flash going on in it. In fact, I'm a little surprised to find these two. I really thought there was none. But outside of Black or Dimir, you're really not going to see much in the way of flash creatures for this set. And hey, just in case you didn't catch all that, Matt would like you to know that the deck list that we discussed in this video is going to have a link down in the doobly-doo to take you over to Aetherhub, along with a link to any other alternative lists that you might wish to consider. He only asks that you give it a little thumbs up when you're over there checking out the deck list. And I plan on live playing this event on Wednesday at 11 a.m. over on my Twitch channel, so definitely stop in and check it out. Because the Stronghold is so much more than just a YouTube channel, and you can find links to all of our other social media outlets in our profile. Because at the end of the day, we're all budget players. And as a community, we're stronger together. So like, comment, subscribe, follow, do all those things to show a little love. It's appreciated more than you know.